Hello, everybody who's joining us. Thank you so very much. We're going to give folks a few minutes to join, and then we're going to go ahead and get started. Is this sharing the screen already?
Yes.
You are screen sharing.
You all can see a PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Wonderful. Will they? I think they'll slowly roll in. I'll give everybody one more minute and we'll get started. If everybody, I believe everybody has already done it, but if you could update your name, do you want their organizations in there too, just their name? If you could also include your affiliation in your title on your Zoom name, that would be wonderful. Your organization or local government or anything like that. That would be great. Yes, thanks, Sheree. Thanks everybody for hopping on. Apologies if you received a very last minute email about this meeting, but thank you so much if you've hopped on. We really appreciate it. Great, I think that's probably about right. So, oops, where's the, here we go. So hey everybody, my name is Gabby Kinney. I'm the Community Engagement Project Manager at Wetlands Watch, and we'll do some introductions on some other staff here in a second. But today we are going to do a little bit of a lunch and learn kind of overview of the Community Flood Preparedness Fund and the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund. We're going to go into some of the detail about these programs, and we're going to leave some time at the end for discussion. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We'll address all of those questions towards the end. But also joining us today is Stacy Fahrenholt from DCR. She will be helping us answer some of your questions if we cannot. And if she also does not know the answer, she has committed to bringing that back to DCR staff and finding out for us. So this is a great chance. If you have any questions at all about these two programs, feel free to drop it in the chat, or we'll mention it in the discussion at the end. And we'll make sure we can get those answered for you guys. Thanks for dropping your organizations in the chat too. So again, if you haven't already, please edit your name to include your affiliation. Make sure you're muted when you're not speaking. Sometimes crazy stuff can go on in the background when you don't expect it. So hang out on mute and write questions in the chat or hold on to them for our discussion at the end. So once again, my name is Gabby Kinney. Again, I'm the Community Engagement Project Manager at Wetlands Watch. I work to promote the Community Flood Preparedness Fund statewide, as well as do some other fun stuff with community science. If you haven't heard of Catch the King, I'm going to plug it here. So register for Catch the King 2023 if you have not heard of it. It's a wonderful program. But I'm also going to toss it over to my associate, John Bateman. And Mary Carson, did you want to pop on as well? Just to say hey.
Okay. Good afternoon, ahead, everybody. John Bateman, Planning Program Director with Wetlands Watch. I'll be helping present today. Thank you all for joining.
Thanks, everyone. All right, so Wetlands Watch is a nonprofit organization. We work again statewide on the issue of sea level rise and flooding and kind of this broad scope of climate adaptation. Our mission statement is we work where land, communities, and water meet to conserve nature in a changing climate. There's a lot to unpack there, but essentially we try to work with our coastal communities and our flood risk communities and help them adapt to things like rainfall, flooding, sea level rise, these kinds of emerging issues that are getting more intense as the years go by, while also protecting the ecosystems that are helping us build resilience against these issues. So we have several different program areas. We do things from training programs on climate adaptation and landscape professional training. We do floodplain management, again, sea level rise adaptation, and that kind of community science corner of the world as well. So if you have any other questions about that work, we are more than happy to answer. Oops. There we go. So what we're going to do, we're first going to run over the Community Flood Preparedness Fund, or CFPF. Those applications, we wanted to throw the due dates up front so you have them. The application period for the Community Flood Preparedness Fund closes November 12th. And then we will introduce the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund. This is the first round of this fund, and that application period is due December 12th. So a month between the two. And then again, we will go over some discussion and questions at the end. So for folks who have just recently joined us, please feel free to send questions in the chat or hold on to them. We will have space at the end to chat. So we'll get started with the CFPF. So this funding program is funded by Virginia's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which we joined in 2020. This is also referenced as RGGI. 45% of the revenue from this program goes into the CFPF. The other 55% goes to both weatherization and home energy efficiency program. That's a 50% chunk. And the additional 5% goes to DCR for the administration of these two programs. Since 2020, the CFPF has received $730 million. We have a really awesome chart in a few slides that breaks down those auction programs. DCR has administered 3 grant rounds of the CFPF thus far, and over $97.7 million has been allocated to localities across Virginia. So again, this is a statewide fund. $85 million has been made available in round 4 through grants and loans. This is the first year that the CFPF is servicing loans, and the award announcement should be around December 2023. This chart shows a breakdown of all of the auctions. So RGGI operates on a quarterly auction program, and Virginia receives proceeds for every auction that we participate in. And so this chart is a really great one, breaks down each of our proceeds and how much of that proceed goes into the CFPF. We had one most recently in September where we received $73 million. And overall, again, we've received $730 million for this program, with the CFPF receiving $328 million. We also anticipate having another one in December. That will be our 4th auction of the year. So the CFPF will receive more funding. Again, CFPF has had 3 round cycles so far. This is a really great chart that just shows what that breakdown of the funding allocation has looked like thus far. In round 1, $18 million was released, $7.8 million awarded. Round 2, $17 million was released, $24.5 million was awarded. This supplemental round, the funds that were left over from grant round 1 were added to round 2. And so that provided more funds to applicants. In round 3, this was kind of a 2-phase round. So there was a supplemental round later on. In phase 1, $40 million was released, but lots of people applied. And so DCR added additional funding to this program and released a supplementary round, which brought our total up to, actually, I don't have my total on this one, but $13.6 million awarded in phase 1 and $51.8 million released in phase 2. And then in round 4, again, it's $85 million. The grant categories include, and these have remained the same across the 3 and 4 rounds of the CFPF. We have planning and capacity building, studies, and projects. One of the things to note for the project category is that it requires a local resilience plan. The planning and capacity building category of the CFPF provides funding for localities to put together their resilience plan. And so this kind of grant program provides a really nice segue for localities to enter the resilience space, to begin their resilience planning work. And studies, again, also do not require a local resilience plan. So you can do things like put together your resilience plan while also doing hydrologic or hydraulic studies, stormwater assessments, and all of that great stuff. And then once you've put together your local resilience plan, you can apply for this project funding. Round 4, again, is open until November 12th, 2023. $50 million is available in grants for all 3, and an additional $35 million is available in loans. And those loans only apply to the project category.
Yeah, I'll chime in there real quick, Gabby, and say that Depending on how the round shakes out, we'd hope that DCR might consider, if they have more applications for grants than loans, maybe converting some of that loan money into grant funds so that they can fund all the projects.
Thank you, John. This graphic just emphasizes again that the CFPF is a statewide fund. There has kind of historically been a lot of this funding sent to our coastal communities, and a lot of Wetlands Watch's work is doing outreach into the western part of the state to teach folks about this fund and make sure they know about it, and provide the technical assistance to help them apply for the CFPF. And so it is, again, a statewide fund, even though resilience can be tied to sea level rise in kind of our coastal communities. It is a statewide fund in helping with flood resilience across the state. These charts come from the Hampton Roads Planning District Commission. They do a really great overview on how our PDCs and regional commissions, our planning district commissions and regional commissions, are receiving these funds as well. These groups are a really great recipient of CFPF awards because they can distribute the awards that they receive in very similar ways that they do through FEMA programs. So getting these funds out to their localities within their region makes a really successful CFPF award. And so we like to see these kind of funds be facilitated in that way. One thing that I like to note about these charts is that almost every PDC and regional commission has applied for this planning and capacity building category. This is where we're seeing a lot of localities start. If you're ready to put together your resilience plan, this is a really great program to do so. And this is the awards that came through the supplementary round last year, so round 3. Another resource that's available to you if you're interested to see who's been funded in the past, the Virginia Conservation Network, or VCN, has an interactive map on their website that goes, highlights all of the projects and studies and planning and capacity building awards that have gone out. And you can click on this map and see what those projects are, what those applications look like, how much was awarded in the past. You can interact with it through this kind of ArcGIS portal, and it breaks it down this way, but there are also linked fact sheets on each of those projects as well. They often include a point of contact, a little bit of detail about the project that has been awarded. We have gone into those applications and pulled out the ones that provide these descriptions, and you're more than welcome to use this tool if it helps your planning for applying to these programs. Really great sheets. Again, that's through the Virginia Conservation Network, so vcnva.org. Some of the examples of funded applications in the past, we like to pull these out to show folks, again, this is a statewide fund, and just kind of the sheer diversity of things that you can apply for through the CFPF. Buchanan County is one that applied for a resilience plan in round 3. It's sometimes nice also to see the variation in how much is funded, how much these localities are applying for. So $387,000 in round 3 went to Buchanan County. They created their local resilience plan with a consultant. Accomack Northampton PDC did a study application in round 1. This was studying the impacts of climate change on crop planting and production, so an agriculture tie-in. Hampton applied in round 1 for a living shoreline project, $126,000, created a living shoreline, 2,100 linear feet for their community. Another really great example is Newport News. They applied in round 2 for almost $5 million and received almost $5 million for a master plan development. This was a combination of 3 individual plans. There was a stormwater plan, a floodplain plan, and a resilience and climate change management plan. All 3 of these together are intended to serve as Newport News's resilience plan. And this is something we'll talk about a little bit later. Resilience plans can be compiled using plans that are created within the locality. So things like hazard mitigation plans, stormwater assessment plans, comp plans, like comprehensive plans. Pieces of those plans can all be compiled to create your resilience plan. So we see some localities creating these kinds of unique and streamlined plans to be components of a resilience plan. Tappahannock received funding in round 2 for a nature-based shoreline that provided public access to Hoskins Creek. And Northampton County received funding in round 3 for both a certified floodplain manager, or CFM, as well as a stormwater and drainage study. All of these applications that we've pulled out here are hyperlinked in this presentation, and you all will receive a copy of it. So you are more than welcome to view these specific ones. And DCR has a whole listing with all of these applications hyperlinked on their website, which is another resource we've linked later on. So if you're curious to see what has been funded in the past, those are available to you. Round 4, again, open till November 12th. 50 million in grants, 35 million in loans. This is, again, the first time the CFPF is offering loans to localities. Those loans only apply to the project category. Applications must be submitted via the web grants portal. So if anybody has not used web grants before, DCR has lots of resources available that kind of walk you through the portal. Wetlands Watch also has experience running a grant program through web grants. And so we are more than happy to provide technical assistance on applying through that portal as well. This is, again, the first year that they're doing it through web grants. Mail-in applications are allowed, but with approval from DCR. So if you're going to submit a mail-in application, go through DCR. Award announcements, we anticipate December, but it has not been finalized yet. The draft manual went out July 7th, 2023 for this 4th round. A new draft manual is released ahead of every round and is open for public comment. The public comment period for this manual was July 7th through August 6th, 2023. 6 comments were received from several localities and organizations, as well as Wetlands Watch. We submitted on behalf of several of our partners. And those comments were incorporated between August 6th and September 13th, and that final manual was released on September 13th. And the grant round was announced that same day. Some of the new manual updates to be aware of, a requirement has gone in, or an edit has gone in to allow the match to be waived for low-income communities for projects up to $1 million. And that's, again, the project category specifically. They increased the applicant cap to 7.5 million for both grants and loans. So if you're applying for either the planning and capacity building or study categories through grants, or the project category through loans, you can receive 7.5 million for both grants and loans, and they're non-cumulative. So you can receive a total of $15 million from this program. Certified floodplain managers may be contracted outside of a locality's employ to approve these projects. So in order to apply for that project category, it is required that a CFM must review that project and approve of it. Originally in the early draft manual, this language was a bit confusing to localities. And so this language has been clarified, and those CFMs can be employed or can be contracted outside of the locality, which is very helpful. Up to 50% of maintenance costs for projects may be allowed for award. So a lot of these nature-based projects or projects that require maintenance can be expensive. And so including these costs in the CFPF award was really important to us in our localities. And that update was included in the final draft manual. So up to 50% of those costs may be allowed. And then up to 15% of the award may be requested upfront as startup costs for low-income communities and 10% for all others. And this is the same requirement for the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund. We created a couple of tables for both the CFPF and the RVRF to kind of break down and streamline all of the percentages and interest rates. The capacity building grants, low income geographic areas, their match is 10%, although there's a caveat here at the bottom. Match requirements may be waived in low income geographic areas for projects, or I'm sorry, for planning and capacity building and study grants of less than $50,000 and for projects less than $1 million. So again, that 10% match is there unless this waiver requirement applies to you. All other areas for capacity building and planning have a 25% match percentage. For studies, a 50%. In projects, this is a really great breakdown for nature-based solutions. That match waiver, that match requirement is lower. So if your project has nature-based solution priority, you have a reduced match, which is really great. Hybrid solutions are the same way. And then all others are built out here as well. Again, this is the first time that the CFPF is including loans, so those interest rates are here as well. For low-income geographic areas, no more than 1% may be allowed for the short-term loans allowed in the project category, and 1.2% for projects. No more than 2% for all other areas for short-term loans, and 1.2% for long-term loans. can be a little bit wonky to talk about so many different percentages and numbers, but hopefully this table is helpful to you guys. And then John, I believe you wanted to take this slide.
Yeah, thank you, Gabby. So the CFPF manual does define a community scale as 25% of a census block. And the graphic that you're seeing here represents a census tract in Hampton, city of Hampton. And it's near a community that Wetlands Watch has done some work in. There is a need for a stream restoration in that neighborhood. And we had advocated during the review process of the grant manuals to broaden the definition of community scale so that it could include neighborhood scale projects. So there is a concern that neighborhood scale projects might be excluded from funding because of the narrow definition.
Thank you, John. So we have a couple mentionings of limitations of the fund. These limitations might be kind of a really light term for these. These are just things that we pulled out of the grant manual that we want localities to be aware of that may shift the way that they apply. Resilience plans, again, which are a requirement of that project category, must be updated after 3 years. We had advocated for this upping to 5 years after the draft manuals went out because it would align with the comprehensive plan timeline for localities. But 3 years is great in terms of a resilience front, kind of having that consistent update and reviewing kind of how resilience progress is going in our localities. That 3-year timeline can be helpful. The CFPF does not fund existing staff salaries. So if you have existing staff that would be involved in these projects, the CFPF does not fund that, but that existing staff salary can be used as an in-kind match. New staff or funding new tasks related to the project you're applying for are fundable through the CFPF. So again, hiring new staff, hiring consultants like certified floodplain managers to review projects, that is all funded by the CFPF. Tribes are not included in the definition of local government this year and are therefore not eligible for this round. And the locality must include a procedure for replacement costs should a project fail under normal operating conditions. So one component of this project category is that you must submit a maintenance plan. And should the project fail within that lifespan, and for this grant program, it is a 10-year minimum lifespan for your projects. If it should fail under normal operating conditions, the locality should include that in their maintenance plan and their intention to pay it back. So again, some things that might be helpful to you through the Community Flood Preparedness Fund are several of these resources. DCR has a funding page for the CFPF. This provides additional information, links to the grant manual, and more information that kind of breaks down the individual grant rounds. Wetlands Watch has our own CFPF tracking page, so we pull out some of these highlights and some of the tables and sort of images that you've seen so far are on that website. So it's a really nice kind of hub for this information. DCR also has a list of every application funded, as I mentioned earlier, if you're curious to see what others around you or within your PDC or your region, what those awards have been like over the past 3 rounds. All of those are available on DCR's website. Wetlands Watch has our own CFPF fact sheet. We have a screenshot of this later so you can see what that looks like, and we'll make sure to share it with everybody after this lunch and learn. We also have an overview of approved local resilience plans. So localities, again, can use pieces of different plans they have established within their locality, things like hazard mitigation plans, comprehensive plans. Pieces of those plans can actually apply to the requirements of a local resilience plan. And DCR also does a really great job building this out towards the end of the CFPF grant manual. So you can go in and kind of cross-reference what your plans say with what those resilience plan requirements are and see how those can apply rather than putting together a whole resilience plan from the get-go. So that can be really helpful if you have those plans made. We also have a local resilience plan consultant list. Several localities have contracted consultants to help them put together these plans. So for those that are accessible and those who have shared it with us, we have a listing of those consultants and which plans they helped out with. And we've hyperlinked those plans where we can. So if you're interested to see who you can consult for these sorts of things, that's available to you as well. We also have locality award fact sheets. Again, that vcnva.org map has these really nice project sheets that talk about what those programs are and who to contact for them. So that's hyperlinked here. And that's where I will toss it over to John.
Great. Thank you, Gabby. So the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund is a new funding stream through DCR. In 2022, the Virginia General Assembly, the Senate, and the House established the RVRF and also moved $25 million from the Community Flood Preparedness Fund to capitalize the new program. And that included also a 10% match requirement for FEMA Storm Act money that the Commonwealth received. More on that in a second. In 2023, just about a month ago, the biennial budget set aside $100 million for RVRF. And in 2023, the state of Virginia received Safeguarding Tomorrow through ongoing risk mitigation or storm funds through VDIM and DCR. That's $6.1 million. Next slide. And I'm going to allow Mary Carson Stiff, our executive director, to talk a little bit more about the Storm Act correlation.
Thank you, John. I think that it's important to note that the resources that were taken from CFPF to capitalize the revolving fund were done so that the Commonwealth of Virginia would be able to receive the allocation of FEMA resources from the Storm Act. And so without that capitalization, the monies, Virginia wouldn't be able to receive these future FEMA dollars and current FEMA dollars, as we'll discuss. So the language, the legislation that was actually created for the RVRF was designed to enable Virginia to receive these dollars. So there was a lot of work that went in communicating with the mitigation industry that has a vested interest in getting these storm revolving fund resources into Virginia to help mitigate structures against current and future flood risk. And so the language actually was designed especially to allow Virginia to receive these resources. It's also important to note that Virginia is one of 8 states, and including, or not including, but in addition to the District of Columbia, to actually pass the legislation that is required to allow a competitive application for the storm resources to come from a state or a territory. And so we are proud that we're able to get these resources. And in the most recently in this past year, we received $6.1 million from that FEMA resource. This is complicated, and the nuance is still being worked out as to how VDEM, which is the agency that will be helping in tandem with DCR to distribute these resources, will actually work within the RVRF, but the dollars are in this same fund. And so all of this, like distribution of future resources, is TBD, but we think it's important for people to know that there are more monies coming into this revolving fund in addition to the CFPF allocation, as well as the 100 million general budget allocation that occurred in this most recent biennium budget. So that's kind of the backstory. Those resources that we've just received and previously received from FEMA are already earmarked for match for projects. And so there's no competitive process yet, but we will keep everybody informed about how this will roll out in the future.
Thank you, Mary Carson. Really appreciate it. Gabby, if we go to the next slide. It's important to point out that the RVRF has this exact same guiding principle as developed for the Coastal Resilience Master Plan framework. I'll point out its intent to identify and address socioeconomic inequities, and also to focus on cost-effective solutions, and then to recognize the importance of using nature-based solutions where practical. And again, it also follows the Chief Resilience Officer's principles, noting specifically that the programs, where possible, should work together as part of a comprehensive, cohesive planning process, in which I think many localities have done just that. And then that the programs must be developed and be implemented with transparency and input from the public. And DCR has done an excellent job of engaging with the public in the rollout of these two programs. All right, so getting into the nitty gritty, the revolving fund has $18.5 million available. There are 4 project categories. They're listed here, and we'll go through each one. Important to note that applications are restricted to local governments, and as Gabby pointed out, non-cumulative 7.5 in grants and 7.5 in long-term loans. So a total of 15 million could be available to a community should they wish. All right, getting into the first funding category, local match for federal programs. Should an applicant have applied to a federal program for funding, the revolving fund could be used as the local match to make the local match. Important distinction, there are 2 different loan terms. There's a standard loan term, and then there's the loan terms for low income and underserved communities as defined by the manual. The standard loan terms are 2% interest rate, a general 0.2% administrative fee for all loans for DCR and VRA to administer those. Loan terms for 20 years for any locality that is not low income, and it's 30 years for any low income area or underserved community. There are different eligible federal programs. I think DCR did a good job in the manual of pretty much stating every one that's used in the state of Virginia. Important distinction, the HMA from FEMA and BRIC from FEMA. I know several communities, including communities in the Northern Neck, have already used CFPF funds as match for BRIC, but this is an opportunity to receive low interest loan to cover the match for large scale projects. Also note the community development block grants are also eligible, and civil works program from U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So hazard mitigation of buildings is the second category that's available under the revolving fund. Again, there are 2 different loan terms, those standard loan terms and those for low income underserved communities. 1.75% interest plus an administrative fee for standard communities that are non-low income. Loan terms for 15 years or less. And it's important to note that the manual says after a project is completed and not longer than the expected design life. So they want to ensure that their funds are being used to create long-term projects that have a long-term impact and are protected from things like flooding and other hazards. And then 1.2 interest rate for low-income geographic areas. Yes, all right. So important to note that grant minimum is $100,000 and loan maximum is, loan minimum is $100,000 and loan maximum is $1 million. Loan amounts cannot exceed the total cost of a project, obviously, but multiple buildings can be grouped together into a single project. Projects must have an expected useful life of at least 10 years, and applications must be accompanied by a maintenance plan. And I want to stop and take a quick check and make sure everybody can still hear me because my screen looks like it might be frozen. Okay, good deal. I'm going to stop video for myself. All right, moving on. So eligible costs, local match for any grant program identified in category A, which is that first category we just mentioned. So any of those federal funding categories, home buyouts and relocation, demolition. It's important to note that these activities, the manual says these activities may be funded through a separate category in future rounds. But for now, they're funded under this category B. in-kind services, administrative costs, and any other costs which would apply to federal, state, or local or other grant funds. So it's pretty flexible loan fund and should be pretty comprehensive for funding your projects. All right, so the third category, or category C, is the establishment of a local resilience funding program. And there are few examples of this in the state at the moment, but this would be for a local government or regional entity to create a flooding resilience fund program. And there's 5 million in grants available. Applicants do not need the program to receive the award, but they would need to begin developing the program and have a conceptual outline that is approved by their local decision makers within a year of award to get the money. And I think DCR envisions the deliverable for this to be a fully fleshed out program design that is adopted by the local decision makers. Grant minimum $10,000, loan maximum is $500,000, 10% match required.
And I just wanted to make one small comment about the way in which this is being required and phrased. So with the conceptual outline approved, the way in which RVRF was legislatively created, the language in the code actually says that grants are available for programs for existing local government programs. And so to be able to give grant monies to create this program and to discover how to create it and spend the time to do the work, this requirement of having a check mark and having the blessings of your decision makers is really essential to keep this program consistent with what the code requires. So that's one of the main reasons why DCR also wants to see programs get moving, and so money can start flowing out of the fund, of course, but it is really that statutory requirement that they're achieving with this requirement.
Thank you, Mary Carson. And those match requirement is as an exception for low income communities, and I think really DCR is trying to innovate new programs, and we'll see what locals come up with. And Wetlands Watch is available to help flesh out any program ideas with anybody who's interested to reach out to us.
And just to bring attention to one of Stacy's comments in the chat, thank you, Stacy, for clarifying in the previous, or as part of that hazard mitigation category, home buyouts and relocations or demolitions are not eligible in this round, but I believe they will be eligible as part of this category in future rounds. I think that was the language. So thank you, Stacy, for that. Yeah,
thank you for the correction. All right, the final category D is capitalization of the local flood resilience funding program. So the previous category is to prop up and set up your program and your program design. And then this fund, this $1 million that are interest-only loans, would be used to capitalize said program. And so the idea here is that once you've applied to set up your program, you could apply again to capitalize that program. That would be the money that would be revolved and lent back out to whatever entities your local program is eligible for. Applicants must have an established loan program. So, program design to receive the award for this category. Interest-only loans at an interest rate of not more than 0.5% and a term of not longer than 10 years. Important to note that the loans can be renewed by a program after maturity, as long as they can demonstrate local program performance. And I believe DCR has put in appropriate level of flexibility into this category because we're still waiting to see what innovative ideas and programs will come out of it. The loan minimum is $250,000 with a loan maximum of $500,000. All right, some important details. It can get rather complex, but this is a chart of the various interest rates associated with the funding areas. Important to note that for the establishment of a local flood resilience funding program for a low-income geographic area, there is no match required. So, definitely looking for these low-income areas to come up with innovative programs that can help create flooding resilience for their residents. And we'll have this actually linked on our website so people can view it. We have a landing page for the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund.
Thank you, John. So there's a lot of information here on both programs. One of the things to note is that these programs were originally intended to run alongside one another, and the application period was set to close and awards were going to go out at the same time. Because the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund is a new program, DCR has provided localities an extra month to apply, and so that's why the CFPF is due in November and the RVRF is due in December. This gives localities a little more time to figure out the loan program, figure out how it might work in their locality. If you're trying to figure out which program might best apply to you, whether it's either or both, we've created this kind of brief chart comparing the two, depending on the things that are being compared. And so I won't go through these line by line, but I'll leave it on the screen for a few minutes. We have that application deadline at the bottom, as well as our websites and DCR's website for more information on these two programs. So this is a really great comparison chart just to see which one provides. And this is, again, something that you will receive within the slides we send out and is existing on our tracking pages for the two programs. Some of the other resources that are available, DCR has done 4 CFPF and RVRF trainings. These have been both in-person and virtual, so hybrid events. A presentation and recording are available on DCR's CFPF webpage. So if you want to see some of those trainings where they walked through how these programs work, as well as how Web Grants works, that recording is available to you all. DCR has also announced several Web Grant specific trainings. These are kind of held as office hours for applicants who aren't sure how to navigate Web Grants. Again, it's a new program. The portal can be difficult to use if you've never seen it before. And again, Wetlands Watch also has experience running a grant program through this portal. The really great thing that DCR has done is really built out the application components inside this Web Grant portal. So it makes it really easy to go in and see what's required. They've built out each category of the programs and provided text boxes and all these kind of great built-in features on where exactly you should be submitting your information. And so this kind of support is, I think, really helpful. And if you're just wondering how Web Grants functions, definitely check out some of these resources. So there's a Web Grants portal that we've hyperlinked here where you'll submit your applications. That training video is available on how to navigate Web Grants. There's also a guide, like a PDF guide on how to go through Web Grants from DCR. And so all of that is available and hyperlinked here. Those training sessions, those office hours are on October 11th, October 25th, and November 8th. The first one has already passed. There was 4 of them. And from 1 to 2 p.m. I believe those are Wednesdays. And then, of course, again, you can visit our website on these two programs or reach out anytime for technical assistance. Wetlands Watch has the time and resources to provide assistance on applications to either program, totally pro bono. We would love to help see these funds get distributed across the state. So if there's anything within these two funding programs that you're interested in applying for, but aren't sure where to start or need help talking about what project might apply to your community, which program fits you, or you're just looking for resources, please feel free to reach out to us anytime, and we're happy to help. Lastly, these are some images of the fact sheets that we have. So we've built out both the Community Flood Preparedness Fund and the Resilient Virginia Revolving Fund and just abbreviated the information on the different categories. So if you're trying to gain kind of local engagement on these programs or local buy-in into which one to fund, this is absolutely a fact sheet that you're more than welcome to download and share with your localities if you're a PDC. Or share with your colleagues to understand the two programs. This is just the first page of them just to show you what they look like, but I think each one is about 3 pages. It also shows the match tables that we shared earlier. And all of the links that we've shared so far in the presentation are on each of these sheets. We also have a document that lists all of the approved local resilience plans that are available to us. These are hyperlinked. Again, those plans can either be a standalone document by itself, or it can be a consolidated plan of different plans within the locality. So something like Norfolk, they've taken their Plan Norfolk 2030, their hazard mitigation plan at the HRPDC level, their green infrastructure plan. They've compiled all of these components to form their resilience plan. And so if you're interested to see if you have something similar or what this might look like for you, this would be a good document for you to share. We also have a listing of, again, those consultants that have helped certain localities compile their local resilience plan. And we've also put together a resilience plan application outline. So applying to the CFPF for those resilience plan funds, this document exists to help walk you through what that application would look like, as well as re-mentioning that an approved resilience plan is a required component of that project category. And one more thing that I'll notice before we get to our discussion is that resilience plans may be submitted at the same time as a project application to the CFPF, but it's recommended you send it before. And on the last DCR outreach call that I was on, they mentioned that it takes about 3 weeks to approve a resilience plan. So get those in as soon as you can if you're planning on applying to a project category in the CFPF. So that brings us to our discussion. I'm going to put several questions on the screen that might help. I'm sure you may have questions already, but these might help stimulate what you're thinking about these two programs. Mary Carson is also going to drop a poll in the chat. You're more than welcome to submit some answers through there and help give us feedback on these two programs. Again, feel free to answer or ask questions in the chat and we'll say them out loud and see if we can get them answered. But some of the ones that you might want to think about and things that we would like to hear from you is if you're planning on applying to one of these two programs or both, which seems to apply more to your community and why. Another thing that we really like to learn is if there are any still existing barriers to applying to either of these funds. Has your local staff kind of expressed any of these barriers, and how can we as Wetlands Watch providing technical assistance on these, as well as DCR in designing these programs, how can we help overcome those barriers? And then if your locality has applied and received funding, how is that going? How has the process been for you so far? And are you planning on applying again, maybe for a different category or the same category? And how all is that going for you? So I will leave these up on the screen for a moment and I'll go quiet. And if you would like to answer one of these questions, I think we can probably do raise hands and I'll go whoever jumps up at the top first. Any takers? This is a great time. Oh, there we go. Hi, Luke. Please feel free to hop off mute.
Hi, y'all. I'm hoping that some localities in Crater PDC are going to apply probably just for planning or study grants. Crater PDC itself might try and apply for a planning and capacity grant as well. The barriers,
I can
barriers I
confirm
would
that we are
say,
hoping to do that.
as usual, is just staff capacity. And, you know, flooding and environmental concerns still aren't at the #1 priority spot for a lot of folks. Even if the money is, even if they're a low income community and the money is almost free, you know, it's still lower down on their list of concerns. But trying to rearrange those priorities and, you know, find some co-benefits too.
Thank you, Luke. Yeah, that's very helpful. And apologies, Kit. I think I may have accidentally muted you while you were confirming that Crater PDC does intend to apply.
Yeah,
So
I didn't know what happened there. My computer's often weird, so it honestly could have also been me. Who knows? But I can confirm we are hoping to apply, and we would love to reach out to you separately to talk through what that might look like for us.
Absolutely. Yeah, please feel free. We'll put my email and John's email will be up on the next slide, but you're also more than welcome to give us a call and send Mary Carson an email as well, whatever works for you guys.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim.
Real quick, two important clarifications from Stacy Fahrenholt. One is while they're allowing maintenance costs in the project awards for this round, it's going to be 50% of future maintenance costs or 5% of the total grant, whichever is less in future rounds. And a note on resilience plans. And thank you, Stacy, very important note. If you're getting a capacity building grant to create a resilience plan, the product must be a standalone resilience plan. Compilation plans are only allowed as a way to meet the eligibility requirement for project grants.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, those are very important clarifications. Okay, Kristen, please feel free to come off mute.
Sure. So we're planning, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I started mowing like right outside my window, so hopefully it's not too loud. So we're gonna apply for CFPF for a resiliency plan. And then we are thinking about applying for the revolving loan fund, specifically for the grant to establish like the local funding program. We haven't quite decided yet on that because we've got some capacity issues, mainly that like multiple people are having babies in the month of November. And so we're trying to figure out if we can make this work with all the people going out for parental leave. So we, we're trying to decide like if we want to do that. So I think just to your questions, like one thing that could be helpful, it's not going to help with this round specifically, but I think it would be really helpful to have the grant manuals released before the trainings so that the trainings can actually walk through the grant manuals. It was incredibly like difficult to really understand and prepare, not knowing, like not having the grant manual until the day that the application period is open. And then also it makes it harder for us on the local end. Like we have to take things to our board. We have to have public notices for meetings. So it's a 60-day time period, but like at least 30 days of that is us just noticing and things for meetings to go to the board to be able to get approval. So not having access to the grant manual until the day that it opens makes it really, really hard for us to prepare an application and be successful for that. And then in the past, we did get funding from CFPF to develop our acquisition program. We're still working on that. So that is just to develop like the administrative side of the program. It's okay, I guess is what I would say about the process. The quarterly reporting has been an issue. That's not necessarily like, it's like on all sides, I think. Is a bit of an issue. I'm hoping that the new online system will help with that, but I am anticipating a lot of problems until we like all get figure out how to use the system. So yeah, hopefully that answered your questions, what you're looking for.
Yeah, that was perfect, Kristen. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing Henrico's applications to the two programs. I think that's wonderful. Again, feel free to reach out anytime if you need assistance. And the additional things that you said are very valuable to us. It's things that we can help communicate with other localities as well. So thank you for sharing that. We appreciate it. Anyone else?
Yeah, I believe we have a question from Grace in the chat. She was asking Stacy to provide context as to why tribes were not on the list of eligible applicants. And Stacy has replied that the director and secretary made that decision as a result of a statutory language in the enabling legislation.
Thank you, John. Yep, very distinct clarification to make. Tribes have been allowed to apply to see the CFPF in the past. And so we are surprised to see that, but we hope that they can be included again in the future. Oh, and Luke, for the new debris management requirement for resilience plans, is there any guidance on what that should look like? That may be a really great question for Stacy, and I can pull up the grant manual as well to see if there is language within the manual. Stacy may be typing it to you as well. Oh, great. So FEMA has examples available if you do a Google.
And the kind of debris management is an element of the community rating system. You can receive credit for having a plan that keeps your system clean and clear. Maybe not clean because that's out of their purview, but clear of debris, which of course affects flooding. And so there are some resources that we can point to from the CRS program. Yeah, that's a really good catch.
Great question. Thank you.
And we have a question from Lauren in the chat. Is it required that the debris management plan be adopted by the locality?
That's another really good question for Stacy, if you don't mind jumping in.
I think it says. Is the thinking there that a county would do it as opposed to a town?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I think I'm having a hard time hearing you all, but yes, that was my question.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, Stacy responded, thank you, Stacy, that a formal resolution would not be necessary.
Awesome.
Thanks for that question. It's a good one. Okay, we have about 3 minutes left. So if you have any burning questions left, now's the time. And in just a second, I will pull up our emails, which you're more than welcome to write down. If you have any questions outside of the purview of this meeting, please feel free to send them our way. We'll also, again, share these slides as well as our fact sheets and resources with you all once this meeting is over. I'll give it another little bit to see if there's any lingering questions. Yes, and fill out the poll. Mary Carson dropped it in the chat somewhere. So please fill out that poll as well. This is just a very succinct kind of, what are you thinking for these two programs? What might you be thinking about applying for, and what might you need assistance with, so that it helps us with our outreach. All right, seeing no other questions. My email and John's email are on the screen. Again, please feel free to reach out anytime if you have questions. We can also help facilitate questions through DCR. Thank you so very much to Stacy for joining us on this call. These are really, really great programs. We're really happy to have them in Virginia. The addition of the loan program, I think, is something that we're looking forward to seeing being successful, and giving these localities different options to provide resilience funding for their communities. And we really appreciate you all joining us today. So thanks so much. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.